like to welcome to the stage Varsha from Lux Research and her panelists, please. Over to you. Enjoy.
Hello all, a very warm welcome to everyone here today. In this panel discussion, we'll be talking about APAC's legislative landscape, what current and future policies mean for commercialization and future growth. Firstly, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Varsha Sethuraman, an analyst at Lux Research. What Lux Research does is we are a global advisory firm. We work with more than 130 corporations, combining predictive anthropology as well as deep technology expertise, working with executives to cut through the noise, help R&D scale, but also help insight teams directly shape what gets built. I'll pass it to my really nice panel here today for an introduction. Maybe we can start with Dr. Fanny for an introduction and then pass it along as well.
My name is Fanny Liao from Taiwan. I'm representing the Taiwan Biomaterial Industry Association, and I'm also working in the Far Eastern New Century Corporation of Taiwan, which is a big polyester PET production manufacturer in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Fanny. Over to you, Panit.
Hi, everybody. My name is Panit. I work for the National Science and Technology Development Agency in Thailand, which is the largest research organization in the country. But at the same time, I am building a biorefinery facility capacities in the Eastern Economic Corridor of Thailand, which is a special economic zone east of Bangkok. Very nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is In-Joo. I'm from Korea, representing Korean Bioplastics Association. We are representing various bioplastics stakeholders, all the way from resin makers to converters of the final products. Bioplastic industry is rather small subset of bigger bioeconomy, but I'll be happy to share some of the current situation with you. Thank you.
Thank you. How about you, Satoshi-san?
Okay, good morning, everybody. So my name is Satoshi Nakagawa. I joined Kyowa Hakko, Japanese pharmaceutical company, in 1987, a long, long time ago. But I'm still a member of Kyowa Hakko. I can't name it Kyowa Hakko Bio, but I work for Japan Bioindustry Association for more than 8 years. So JBA is we call it JBA, Japan Bioindustry Association. JBA is a non-profit organization to promote development of bio-based industry in Japan. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's really nice to see a diverse representative on stage today. So let's dive deep. So as you may all know, I think in the earlier presentation, which was actually our first presentation from the World Bioeconomy Association, we saw a really nice figure of the different bioeconomy strategies, but also the different policies. And you may have noticed that across APAC, different governments have different strategies and outcomes in promoting their bioeconomy. For example, Japan has announced large-scale public funding as part of their bioeconomy strategy. Thailand, for example, has committed large-scale public funding, but also to attract commercial facilities in the region. But Korea as well has focused heavily on R&D and material innovation support. So I think the question here today for the panelists is, in your country today, which government policy has helped grow the biomanufacturing, but also which policy looks good on paper, but has not worked well in practice? Let's start with Panit. What's your thought from Thailand?
Oh, very good question. Actually, this is one of the business sectors where Thailand is doing actually quite well. So we are very big sugar economies, one of the top 5 sugar economies in the world, number 2 in export. If you go out and have your break, coffee break, the sugar probably comes from Thailand. So fermentation is just a conversion of carbon sources, especially sugar, and then we manufacture different kinds of products, vaccines, drugs, modalities, bioplastics. So Thailand is doing quite well because of the abundance of sugar to start with. But then the policy in terms of, trying to get more biotechnology-based economies going on, more investment, was actually driven mostly by the Thailand Board of Investment. So they have very specific tiers of incentives that you can get. And bioplastics, for a very good example, is actually ranked as the 2nd highest tier. So if you manufacture bioresins, then you could get up to 8 years corporate income tax exemption, and no import duties if you buy machines from Alfa Laval and other machines, right? But also, if you manufacture in specific regions like the EEC, so the 3 provinces in the east of Bangkok, then you could get even more years on the corporate income tax exemption on top of the BOI exemption. So it could not just be 8, it could be more, it could be 10, 12 years. So in that regard, I think Thailand is putting up a very good framework in terms of setting up manufacturing capabilities. What we're trying to do right now is also to set up a framework to allow for translation of research and have a better, connection to basically fill the gaps, the valley of the death between academic institutions and research and manufacturing. So we are setting up something we call a synthetic biology consortium, and we developed basically a framework where we not only focus on the manufacturing, but also in the framework of assisting companies, startups, scientists go through the development phase of the research and development activities and translate that basically more into commercialization. We have a framework for synthetic biology roadmap, which has already started in the year 2022 and which will end in 2030. So with that, I think Thailand is doing quite a great job in putting up different kinds of frameworks and incentives, not only for the manufacturing, but also for the translation of research.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the reason why NatureWorks is setting up such a large PLA facility in Thailand, but next we have Braskem CM as well for polyethylene. Thank you so much for that perspective. How about in Korea, In-Joo? What's your thoughts on existing biomanufacturing policy and what's the gap there?
Well, in Korea, if you look at the bioeconomy research activities, I think the big money coming from the government is for the pharmaceutical areas. So the big chunk of money goes there, and then the next set will be split into biochemicals and biomaterials. And still, it's a huge investment for the researchers, and we have a couple of very successful examples out of this government funding. And one of those 2 examples, one particular company is participating in this conference with us. The name of the company is called Noru. They were able to develop the new technology, or not the new technology, but new biomass feedstock into platform chemical stage. And now they are trying to find investors or partners to commercialize towards the final products. So it's a very good example. And the other one is another company which began production of bio-based isosorbide since 2022. It's purely came out of research funding from the government. So that's most notable examples, but still small and large examples, successful examples coming from the government funding. In addition to that funding support, we have from the government that several other packages, one of which is the tax benefit for the facilities investment or research money, research expenses, and also financial support for the low interest rate loans for the small companies. The other one is the what we call regulatory sandbox program, which is quite interesting to me, and where they remove all the legal obstacles for a certain period of time of the development phases, so that they can try many different things without worrying about the legal issues. So that's the other policies that we have right now. And also we support international certification subsidy, and others will be public procurement priority, things like that.
That's awesome. It seems like there's quite a lot of activity happening in Korea from a biomanufacturing policy standpoint. What's your perspective, Satoshi-san, in Japan?
Yes, in Japan, Ministry of Economy and Trade and Industry have invested a huge money on the R&D money into the industrial biomanufacturing field. And a number of companies entering in this field without prior experience, and also they don't have no facilities. But this makes commercialization more challenging, I think. So we JBA are promoting horizontal division of labor of innovation, and wish to encourage collaboration among the relevant parties, both domestically or internationally. And but I think the primary reason for delay in commercialization is in Japan, especially in Japan, the lack of support system for downstream process development, I think. So this is because a variety of the target compounds is now wish to be produced is increasing. So making development the purification method is very important, as they become a bottleneck. So still in this field, no government support is provided. And also, as you may know, manufacturing cost for a bio-based product is tend to be higher compared to conventional petroleum-based products. So therefore, government initiative to create a market is very important and necessary. But in Japan, they have not been fully implemented. So now with the establishment of Sanae Takaichi administration, new prime minister, so now 17 growth strategy field has been designated, and synthetic biology and biotechnology is included one of the key priority areas in Japan. So meetings are currently be held to formulate a roadmap now. So through this initiative, so I hope to address and fill the gap that have been lacking in previous government policies.
Thank you. So from what I'm gathering is, I think most support is in R&D and pilot scale. So that brings me to the next question. I think in most APAC regions, we're seeing incentives and government funding being really into R&D and pilot scale, but the biggest gap is moving to commercial scalability of these technologies, whether it's synthetic biology or non-fermentation based technologies, right? So where do current policies fall short in helping this transition from R&D and pilot to commercial scale. Maybe Dr. Fanny, I'll start with you on this. What are your thoughts?
I think for commercialization, it's important to find a local partner. I think especially if the bioplastic could be a drop-in to the current facility. For example, I think Total Colombia is a good example. Colombia has a technology partner with Total. So find a partner, especially POA, could be dropped into the PET production facility. So it would be great that you have the partner, you have probably do the existing equipment drop in, so they can save you a lot of CAPEX for the first commercial plant. Also, the downstream product development is important. Like POA can be mostly processed in PET equipment, no matter it's a sheet or bottles. I actually blew the probably the first batch of the POA bottle 25 years ago. So something like that, it would be easier for you to step into the first commercialization factory and then save you a lot of CAPEX. Of course, the local government policy of subsidy and loans are important. And then I think downstream product development is the key to really open up the market and get a scale so you can really have a commercial case for the first plant to build up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Without a downstream market pull, we're seeing a lot of companies struggle, especially for more novel materials, right? How about in Thailand? What's your perspective, Panit?
Yeah, I totally agree with Fatty actually, because before you go and raise funds to build a new facility, you should probably look at who has what, and then we basically make use of the current existing capabilities first. So networking is definitely key, but still, if there would be gaps where the network doesn't provide for enough capacities, then I think government still needs to make investment. Like in Thailand, the government has just allocated budget to build a biorefinery facility as a pilot scale facility at the budget of $100 million US, which I am actually building up right now in Rayong, close to the Corbion site, by the way. So I think investment still has to be done in areas where there are no other options. But definitely, I think resource sharing, networking, having an ecosystem to help create knowledge, products, companies, that is still very, very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely agreed on that. Just bringing together partners, like say maybe Kimberly-Clark from an upstream perspective, Alpha Laval. So I think that's important. How about in Korea, In-Joo?
Well, for Korea, I think I would say we have another issue that if you're really serious about making bio feedstock or renewable resource feedstocks, you have two different choices, right? One is utilizing the biomass resources, plants or whatever. The other option is that utilizing the waste resource, right? Could be recycled plastic or could be waste cooking oils or whatever. Now, Korea has absolutely no crude oil, also no usable biomass feedstock. So we have to rely on waste plastic or waste cooking oils to make really useful product. So a lot of industry is asking for the government to make a really reliable infrastructure to collect these waste materials, right? So that's, I think it's compared to other countries like Taiwan, for example. We have lots of sugar, so happy country. But in this day and age, Korea has another difficulty looking at the feedstock.
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually is a really nice segue to the next question on feedstock availability. How are governments designing policies based on the region's feedstock availability, and also addressing issues like land use, food competition, or ensuring there's a long-term supply of securing these feedstocks? Because if you don't look at upstream perspective, then there's a problem, right? So maybe let's start with Dr. Fanny. What's your global perspective on that?
Taiwan, it's not the country with a lot of resources. So I think to build the first commercial plant, you want to consider where your feedstock comes from. And then for the building the plant, you can consider to build close to the feedstock or close to the market. Yeah, but usually for the bioplastic, biomaterials, you have a bulk bio feedstocks. I think it's better you close to the feedstock. And then I think for the downstream process, it's no problem. Like Taiwan is very strong in plastic downstream processing. So shipping the pallets, the raisins to processing everywhere and close to a market, I think it's not a problem. But if you can't compete with the food, I think currently the bioplastic, biomaterials competing with food is still very small portion of the arable lands. So this is not an issue right now. Of course, we're trying to develop the second generation technology using the waste or like a methane, all this kind of waste feedstock. But important is when you collect using the waste as a feedstock, the collection of waste is the key. So you have to be very careful. How do you get the access to those waste and how do you collect it? Usually the collection cost is very high. So second generation feedstock is not only about the cost, technology, also the source and the collection and logistic of the feedstock.
Absolutely agree with you on that. We don't want additional cost to already things being so expensive to produce. Satoshi-san, how is it in Japan? What's your thoughts on feedstock availability and policies?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, the Ministry of Economy and Trade and Industry in Japan investing heavily in R&D. But similar to Korea, Japan doesn't have abundant feedstock, fermentation feedstock. So therefore, the government is implementing the project to utilize carbon dioxide and use the resource as a fermentation feedstock. But it seems producing useful substance from the carbon dioxide will require somewhat longer time, I think. And from the perspective of untapped resources, Japan's 4 major paper manufacturers are exploring whether pulp available from their supply chain can be converted into the sugar and glucose and used as a fermentation feedstock. That's very important, very interesting. But that they work together. 4 companies do individually is very unique. So, but I think that compared to conventional sugar-based production, this approach is a higher cost of government initiative to create a market as expected.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Feedstock availability and tapping into different other resources is definitely important when you want to keep your bioeconomy strategy up and running. So I'd like to look ahead from 5 years from now. What do you think your region should look like, and how are governments working towards that? And which sector, is it chemicals, materials, food, or fuels, do you think will scale first in your market, and why? Maybe I'll start with In-Joo this time. How is it in Korea?
I think for the next few years, we will see more legislation mandating the use of biomass feedstocks. We already started implementing the adding biomass feedstock into the SAF, Sustainable aviation fuels. We began utilizing that last year, and we will increasing the allocation year by year. And that will create a lot of investment and research activities. So because of the huge size of the biochemical businesses, similar legislation, not like the ones in Europe, but it's a much softer approach is needed in Korea. So I think if we are successful in doing that, we will move ahead and try to approach the carbon neutrality by 2050.
Mhm. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective for Korea and priority as well. How about in Thailand, Panit?
It's a very good question. Because we have developed all these policies and manufacturing capabilities in fermentation before any country else in Southeast Asia. So we are actually quite advanced in different kinds of products. So Ajinomoto has a huge amino acid plant, but there are 30 bioethanol plants in Thailand already. So we are already quite full in terms of achieving the goal in the field. SAF is, of course, another goal that we are still following, but bioethanol, biodiesel, I think, is already at the peak. Right now, we are seeing more investment being done in bioplastics. So we are seeing larger scale facilities, but we are also seeing more startup companies. Even a Japanese unicorn has started manufacturing some of their fabrics or proteins that are going to be woven into fabrics in Thailand. So we are going to see more of innovative products starting from now on, I think. And I think it's a very good time to think also from the perspective of Thailand being the country with the abundance of raw materials, because right now we are, of course, facing global warming issues. And it's very warm here in Singapore. It's even warmer in Thailand. And of course, we are at the point where we have to see how these effects are going to have implications on the availability of raw materials. So I think that's something that we definitely have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's an important point to keep in mind as well. How about you, Dr. Fanny?
For Taiwan, it's very strong in plastic processing. So, for example, my company, Far Eastern New Century, already commercialized the 30% bio-based PET. And then the 100% bio-based PET is available for discussion. So this is dropped into our facility for production. So we're still pushing a lot for bioplastics because in Taiwan, you will charge the carbon tax. So this is an incentive for downstream user to switch from the petrol-based to the bio-based. And also, I think SAF is also a very hot topic because the tax is for every flight. So I think these are two focuses for next few years in Taiwan we are working on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also a lot of bioadhesive in our association. A lot of members work on the bioadhesive too that can dramatically reduce a lot of hard carbon footprint too. So these are a few focus we are working on for the next few years.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And Satoshi-san, maybe the last words from Japan.
Yes, in Japan, there are several big traditional fermentation companies like Ajinomoto and Kyowa Hakko and now named MCLS, Mitsubishi Corporation Life Science. But they are all of the food company. They do not produce chemicals, only food. So, but in Japan, the food safety regulation is very, very, very strict. So expansion market in the food sector is very difficult in Japan. So, and the chemical companies are much interested in this field. So I think the chemical products will be make a market in Japan, but highly valued products will be like for use of cosmetic or fragrance will be first entry in the market, I think.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think those are very interesting perspectives to look for 5 years from now. I know we're right on time before the coffee break, so I just want to leave you with some last food for thought. So I think for developers in the room, we've heard from our panelists, but also I'm sure you will hear from different conversations. Downstream market pull is important to look at when you're assessing the region that you want to commercialize, your first facility or pilot facility, and also the product that you want to develop. But also, just as importantly, is end-of-life infrastructure and waste management systems, assessing that in different regions before you deploy your facilities, but also your products is something also to look into. And for investors in the room, analyzing technologies is good for startups, but also look at the upstream capabilities. Are they being strategic about their upstream partners, but also the downstream product? Because we've heard multiple times, I think, without a market pull, scalability potential can be an issue. So thank you for your time and for your attention. If there are any questions, we're always available outside for questions. So thank you.